What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you're excited to talk about the most obvious situation in the entire world. Today is Monday, February 26, 2024. It's important because this is the week of the NFL Combine, and while Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer, rather neither Mike McCarthy nor Mike Zimmer, are expected to attend, it is an important week for the NFL, an important week for information gathering, an important week for conversations to be had, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll obviously be on the lookout for all the latest and all the relevant Dallas Cowboys headlines and storylines. We'll keep you updated here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel and all throughout the Blogging the Boys universe. But I talked about the most obvious thing in the history of the world. It was reported on Monday, February 26th, that the Dallas Cowboys will not be placing the franchise tag on running back Tony Pollard. You can see that we put duh in parentheses here. This was reported first by ESPN's Adam Schefter, and not taking any kind of shots at Shefty, but this was the most obvious news in the history of the world. As you can see here, I think if I, nope, doesn't do that here. At least let me see here. This is an experiment. Nope. At least we learned that, though. As you can see, the Cowboys are also not expected to tag free agent to be running back Tony Pollard for the same 12.1 well-rounded $1 million, according to sources. He notes the Tennessee Titans will not be placing the franchise tag on Derrick Henry. And then he talks about the Chargers and Austin Eckler. He quote tweeted himself twice actually here in noting that the New York Giants are not expected to place the franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, and that the Las Vegas Raiders are not expected to place the franchise tag on Josh Jacobs. This is notable, of course, because all three of these running backs, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, and Josh Jacobs, each were placed or each had the franchise tag placed upon them last season. Now, Tony Pollard just signed the tag and showed up to work. Granted, he was coming off of the fractured fibula, but both Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs tried to use any kind of leverage they had to generate long-term contracts with their teams last season. They were unsuccessful. They each ultimately came to terms on kind of a reworked franchise tag with their teams, but as we kind of fully expected all along, this was always going to end with all of them hitting the open market. And a lot of people get really upset about this because there are some people who are purists in the NFL when it comes to running backs and the running back position. And the reality of the situation is that it is a devalued position in terms of devoting serious resources. As we take a look here at Over the Cap, this is the state of the running back position in the NFL. Let's get nice and zoomed in right there for you. You can see here, if we look at things, oh, goodness gracious, there we go. From an APY standpoint, Christian McCaffrey leading the way, $16 million. Alvin Kamara, $15 million. I think you can make an argument that that might not necessarily be worth it at this particular moment in time anymore. Jonathan Taylor, who got that new deal with the Indianapolis Colts, $14 million. Nick Chubb, I know people are talking about how the Cleveland Browns could move on this offseason. As you can see right there, though, that's kind of our break point. Nick Chubb at $12.2 million, because the franchise tag value for Tony Pollard, for Saquon Barkley, and for Josh Jacobs is $12.1 million. Now, it's worth mentioning that that is a different tag value than if the Titans were to tag Derrick Henry. And the reason for that is that Pollard, Barkley, and Josh Jacobs all were given the franchise tag last year, so it does go up in percentage. That's just standard rhyme and rhythm as it pertains to the franchise tag. But you look at it, Tony Pollard already there. This is his value for this past season, that 10.091. We rounded that up all off season long and all season long to 10.1. And there you see Saquon Barkley. There you see Josh Jacobs. Again, they had those rework deals where the money was just slightly different in terms of guarantees and whatnot. And as unfortunate of a situation as it is, to kind of just say point blank and bluntly, it's not worth placing the franchise tag. It's not worth giving big money to a running back in today's NFL. And this conversation, I mentioned it and kind of danced around it a little while ago. People often turn into saying that the running back position is devalued. And I think that we have seen, if you look at obviously the state of the NFL, and if we pull this back up here, you look at these running backs here at the top of the list are significant, right? Christian McCaffrey is a significant part of the San Francisco offense. Jonathan Taylor is a significant part of the Indianapolis Colts offense. That's why they paid him when they did. But some of this is also representative of a lot of factors. That's why context is important. Christian McCaffrey now, granted things, and circumstances change, but Christian McCaffrey now plays for a team whose quarterback is playing on the contract of being the last pick in the NFL draft in Brock Purdy. Jonathan Taylor plays for a team in the Indianapolis Colts who have a rookie quarterback contract in Anthony Richardson. Josh Jacobs and the Raiders have been in a weird situation for a long time, but Aaron Jones, obviously, right now at the moment with Jordan Love, with Aaron Rodgers out the door. Saquon Barkley, for the longest time, had Daniel Jones playing on that rookie contract next to him in the backfield. And so some of that context is necessary, but beyond that, even if the context is that you're playing on a team that has a quarterback with a big contract, like Nick Chubb is an example, if you're the right running back, it is totally worth the price of admission. It is totally worth the investment that it is required to ultimately land you to be on a given NFL team. But the reality is, I don't know that anybody these days is advocating for just finding any random person off the street to play running back for you, but devoting serious premium resources or capital to the position more often than not lead to not great results. And as Dallas Cowboys fans, we know that obviously full well, not just with Tony Pollard playing on the franchise tag right now, but with Zeke Elliott in the big time contract. And that's what's so interesting and fascinating about this news is that while this isn't breaking news by any stretch, while it's been pretty obvious for a very long time that the Cowboys were not going to place the franchise tag on Tony Pollard, the same way it was obvious that the Giants were going to do it with Saquon, that the Raiders weren't going to do it with Josh Jacobs, the Cowboys are facing a remodel of their running back room for the first time since 2016 when they drafted Zeke Elliott. And if you presume that they go at this in a more conventional way in terms of the current landscape of the NFL, it's the first time the Cowboys are going to go at their running back position with just kind of general assets since 2015. If you recall, at the time in 2015, the Cowboys carried Joseph Randle, who was entering his third season in the NFL, having been a fifth-round draft pick in 2013, and they signed Darren McFadden in free agency, the same Darren McFadden who, after Joseph Randle was no longer a part of the team, the same Darren McFadden who went for 1,000 yards. That Cowboys turned Darren McFadden into a 1,000-yard rusher even 7 years after he was drafted out of Arkansas when the Cowboys wanted him the first time. And that's what I think is really interesting about this from a Cowboys perspective is we're probably going to be seeing perhaps an entirely different room at the running back position outside of perhaps Deuce Vaughn or Malik Davis or maybe Rico Dowdle. Obviously, some of those things are still a little bit TBD. And maybe we even see Tony Pollard. Maybe Tony Pollard makes his way back to the team because right now, as it stands, with these teams not intending to place the franchise tag on them, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, all slated to become free agents. And if you look at it, the running back market is not generally a robust one. The fifth biggest contract handed out to a running back last offseason, actually happened after the offseason. It was Dalvin Cook, who received a 1-year, $7 million deal with the New York Jets. That was the fifth biggest contract handed out to a running back last year. And so it stands to reason that if you're one of these big time running backs who happens to have hit the open market, who didn't get the long-term deal that you were seeking, that it's worth waiting around, and that while you probably are not going to get the big payday that you want, that you could find yourself in circumstances that potentially could lead to success for you on an individual level. Obviously, that did not happen for Dalvin Cook because of the Aaron Rodgers injury, but I say all that to say it's very possible that Tony Pollard is back with the Dallas Cowboys because there is not going to be a market for his services, not because he's a bad player, but because there simply is not a market for paying that position big time money, devoting big time resources, devoting serious capital, in this case, financial capital, because of the way the position works. And we've learned this time after time after time after time again. And if you want to spend a first round draft pick on a running back, I'm not advocating for the Cowboys to do that, but you can recover from that. The true crime, the true issue is giving a second contract, a second big time contract to a running back. There are exceptions like Christian McCaffrey, but those are in fact generally the exceptions. And so while this isn't breaking news, it is important obviously to go over the Dallas Cowboys not expected to place the franchise tag on Tony Pollard. Of course, we say not expected because that was the verbiage associated with the report, because anything could still technically happen. The Cowboys could wake up on Tuesday and decide, you know what, we decided we want to do it. But it seems extraordinarily unlikely that the Cowboys will be placing the franchise tag on Tony Pollard for the second year in a row. In fact, it seems extraordinarily unlikely that the Cowboys will be placing the franchise tag on anyone. They have a lot of situations and a lot of matters to tend to as they relate to Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, but the franchise tag will not be a weapon that they use at their disposal. At least that's the way it looks right now. My name is RJ Ochoa. If you like what I do, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at RJ Ochoa. Make sure to subscribe here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. We have all sorts of things coming out all the time. Make sure to subscribe to the Blog on the Boys podcast network as well. With the NFL Combine happening this week, there are surely going to be a handful of storylines that we need to discuss, and we look forward to doing that right here alongside you, because we love you very much. Have yourself an incredible day. Thanks so much for hanging out. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get out of here. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time.